Horsemen, the NWO, the Bullet Club, and D-Generation X. What do these things have in common, Mike? Four of the
They're
greatest
fabulous.
factions.
You ask me a question and you don't let me answer. Typical Chris Adams.
It's rhetorical. You haven't picked up on me yet. They are greatest factions. Some of the greatest factions of all time there.
It is typical. It is typical, Chris. He will ask a question and not let someone answer.
Speaking of typical, here's Ray at the last possible second. We're going to start calling him Chuck, I think.
No, see, the difference is I show up when the show starts. Chuck shows up 20 minutes after the show starts.
I think it was 15 minutes, but still just the same.
Yeah.
Anyway, welcome to the show, everybody. As usual, Sunday night here. I am Chris Adams, host of the show, and I'm dragging along these two knuckleheads, Mike Currents and Ray Filipino. We're here to talk this week of great factions over wrestling history. And some of these factions you may be familiar with, depending on how long you've been watching wrestling. Some you may not. Some are fairly obvious, and they stand out as, obviously, the greats of greats. And for me, guys, I don't know about you guys, but for me, the greatest of the great factions for me was always the Four Horsemen.
Well, of course. Is there any other that you can put at the top? I don't think so. As far as quality and dominance, the Four Horsemen have it all the way.
I mean, they held titles galore, Ray. I mean, they were always there.
But
World
here's the other
Championship,
thing.
tag teams, everything.
You want to say that they're probably the greatest faction of all time, but which incarnation do you speak of?
Oh, I tell you what, there's only one incarnation of the Horsemen. If anybody knows me, knows. All right, it's Arn, Tully, Rick, and Barry Windham. That's your real Four Horsemen to me. Ole Anderson, I know, was great. Because you had him and Arn Anderson's the Minnesota Wrecking Crew, the new version of them. They ran great in the tag scene. They held tag gold. Tully, did his singles title run. Rick had the World Heavyweight Championship. At one point, all four of them had gold around their waist. But it was not the dominant Four Horsemen, in my opinion, as it was when Ole left and Barry Windham stepped in. And actually, there was somebody in between. If I'm not mistaken. Wasn't Luger in between Ole and Windham?
Or was that Sting?
No, I don't think it was Sting.
No, it wasn't Sting. Sting was after that.
It was later. It was way later.
Yeah. But I would take both of those incarnations, Chris. I would say that the Ole incarnation and the Barry Windham incarnation are equally impressive.
I will give you that, but as far as my favorite of the two, I would go with Barry over Ole as a favorite. But they both were solid, tough stables.
Yes, I would agree with that. Chris Adams and I agree, people. Mark it on the calendar. And I'm sure Ray's going to disagree because he's Ray.
And this will never happen again, me and Mike agreeing so quickly early in the show.
I mean, in my opinion, I do agree with you guys, but I also feel that even though there wasn't the sheer dominance of gold, I still feel that, Malenko, Benoit, Arn, and Rick was still dominant in their own aspect.
In their own way, yes. I mean, because they dropped Mongo at that point, thankfully, and brought him back.
Mongo actually came in after Malenko.
Right, but he was there as a period of time when there was no Mongo as a part of the group there at that point, though. It was just Rick and Arn, and then Benoit and Malenko there.
And it's sad because in that incarnation of the Four Horsemen, Mongo was the only one to hold gold.
Yes, sad as that was. When you talk to other people, Mike, and you hear them, not us talk to other people. When you hear other people talk, like Triple H, talking about D-Generation X, their thought of their group was, kind of based upon the Four Horsemen and the dominance they had, along with that twist of arrogance and shunning the rules, that they had, obviously. But the Four Horsemen was a big part of their thoughts on their stable that they had set up with DX.
Well, when you compare the two groups, when you compare the DX to the Four Horsemen, it's not fair. It's not fair to DX because the Four Horsemen is a long-lived stable with many different incarnations that all worked. DX was a particular group of gentlemen, and that's how it worked. They couldn't add anybody. They couldn't really subtract anybody without it falling flat on its face.
Except for one time. Except for one time.
Wait a minute. Here's my thing. Once again, it falls into incarnations of DX. You had Hunter and Michaels and Rude and China.
Right.
Now, granted, Rude wasn't wrestling.
That wasn't DX.
Quote-unquote
that was
bodyguard.
That was pre-DX.
I don't know. They still went by D-Generation X.
Well, hold on. What I was going to say is, now, would you consider that incarnation of DX, of Triple H and Michaels, more of, just a tag team as opposed to a faction, and then the faction builds when Michaels leaves? Or would you still consider that a faction?
It is not a faction. It is a faction after Michaels leaves.
That's an excellent point, because it was the two of them only that really wrestled, and they were, bucking the rule and all that other stuff. I could definitely see that just being a tag team. I mean, but I think, did they not still refer to them as D-Generation X, though?
Well, yeah, but the APA...
They say you make the rules, and we will break them. Plain and simple. D-Generation X will break the rules.
We could probably debate that one for half the night there if we really wanted to, because they still had Rude and China that got involved sometimes, and that still is a part of your faction per se. But they're the only two that wrestled, though. So
in the same breath, would you have considered the Midnight Express a faction?
No, I would consider
they were two wrestlers and a manager. Maybe if they had,
which is exactly what DX was in the beginning.
I'm sorry, hold on. But if you include Big Bubba Rogers, the bodyguard, that would have been the same thing as having Rick Rude as a bodyguard and China as a manager,
right?
With the other two, or valet/manager. So I guess you're more right when you put it that way. So good. That's an excellent point. Never thought about it like that. Now, the Four Horsemen, to kind of jump back to them for a second here, one of the things to me that made them so great was any one of the members of the Four Horsemen at any time could have been the World Heavyweight Champion if they really and truly wanted it that way. And in my opinion, the one person that should have had it, because I think, didn't Barry Windham win it just like for a moment? Or did he just, or was he chasing it and never got it? I forget.
I believe he was
I'm pretty sure he
never got it.
It's been a while. I can't remember. But it was when he was not in the Horseman, obviously. He was fighting Flair at that time, feuding with him. But still, the one person that I think always deserved it, never had it, was the guy that I was lucky enough to meet this weekend. That's Arn Anderson.
Arn Anderson.
I wish he had held that gold at one point, because that would have been.
Did you tell him that?
Just great. Huh? We talked we got to talk for 5 minutes. He had a long line, and I couldn't stand in line very long. I just want to get this out real quick. I went to the Continental Championship Wrestling reunion. It's similar to the Memphis Wrestling that I grew up on, but it was based out of Alabama, more or less, and Knoxville, Tennessee. The Fullers, Ron Fuller, Robert Fuller, their father, Roy Welch, actually was the one I think that started it and was running it. But I got to go there. They had Dutch Mantell. He was there. Arn Anderson was there for it. The original assassin, I think it was, Jody Hamilton, was there.
Which, for those that don't know, is actually referee Nick Patrick's father.
Yes. Bullet Bob Armstrong was there. And it was funny. Sitting beside Bullet Bob Armstrong the whole time was Paul Lee. And a lot of people in the indie circuit can't stand Paul Lee. His claim to fame is he's the only person that Ric Flair vouches for using the Nature Boy gimmick right now or something, which is really crazy. I don't know if that's true or not. But Jerry Stubbs was there, former Mr. Olympia. The original Lord Humongous was there. Robert Fuller, Ron Fuller, both were there. It was very, very fun for me because I got to get my picture made with Robert and Ron Fuller. I got to watch Robert Fuller growing up in Memphis all the time. He called himself the Tennessee Stud, ran the Stud Stable, which is a gimmick his brother Ron did in the Continental Championship Wrestling.
So what you're saying is you had a blast. What you're saying is you had a blast going to the nursing home.
Oh, you know what? I don't care what you want to call it. I will hang out with those guys in the nurse's home any day of the week, man. It was awesome.
And I guarantee one thing. I guarantee one thing right now, Chris Adams. Ray would not say that to the face of any of the gentlemen that you talked to today. Or,
no.
Oh, hell no.
No, not even
There's
Bullet
no
Bob.
way.
Not even Bullet Bob. Bullet Bob.
Because
they would.
Ray, they would dump you and beat you with your own chair.
Well, they'd be vicious. The stud stable was a rough group. Always a rough group.
Is that
Jimmy
and
Golden.
after they beat me with the
Matter
chair,
of
I'm going to
fact-
tell them they might need to borrow it in about 5 minutes.
Matter of fact, Ray, another former WCW person was there along with Anderson. He was a part of the original stud stable there, which is Jimmy Golden. He went by Bunkhouse Buck in the WCW.
I remember
him.
Bunkhouse Buck. Bunkhouse
Yeah.
Buck actually made it all the way into the mid '90s.
Right. Now he was there as long as Colonel Robert Parker was there, I believe, which of course is Robert Fuller. So, but it was a great time, and I guess talked to Arn Anderson maybe about 5 minutes or so. He had a really long line, like I said, and they couldn't hold the line up. But he was great. He stood up, shook my hand, asked what my name was. Thank you for coming out to to the thing they were having there today. We talked about what he was doing currently. He said he's behind the scenes in Raw doing producing for the Raw television show. You will catch him sometimes hanging out at SmackDown, he said, which I told him, which was funny because I did see him on camera on SmackDown when AJ Styles went back behind there to confront Shane McMahon. He said, yeah, I was hanging out back there for a moment. I told him I really enjoyed watching him over the years, loved watching the Four Horsemen. He was always very entertaining no matter what he did, whether it was the Four Horsemen or he was in Dangerous Alliance, and looked like he genuinely appreciated the acknowledgement and everything. I mean, I'm sure he hears it all the time, but I mean, he was just a really nice guy overall. You hear some stories about people sometimes who are jerks. He was not. Nothing like that. Everybody was cool. Dutch Mantel was kind of looked like he was tired. That's what he looked like. He wasn't very chatty or talkative. Just looked like he was tired. But he was there fulfilling his obligation. He was just not really into it a lot. But anyway, Arn Anderson, back to the point, I would love to see him hold that heavyweight championship. That's something that I just feel like, I don't know if I can say he was robbed over it, because I don't know how hard he actually lobbied or pushed to have it. Or is he just happy to be where he was? Because I bought his book he had at the table, and he mentions in his book that he was very fortunate and extremely happy to be able to make a living at what he loved doing. And being at the top of the game where he was, he made a lot of money. And that was what he was there for his family, to make a lot of money. He didn't sound like he stressed championships. And if you go back and look, he lost a lot of matches at pay-per-views and sometimes on TV whenever they fought some of the bigger names on television. So, I mean, that would go to show you he's, really there for the entertainment for the fans and everything. But Tully Blanchard was great as well. Both of them had unique moves at that time. Do you guys remember? Well, Ray, I don't know how far back you go with WCW in the NWA area. I don't know. Mike, you might remember this. You always talk about the Four Horsemen. Do you recall the two unique moves that Anderson and Blanchard had at the time?
The one I really remember that stands out in my mind is that Tully Anderson suplex, where he takes him and snaps him off the top rope. It's kind of like a slingshot almost suplex.
Right.
Nobody else was really doing it then. And
Tully Blanchard, you said Tully Anderson.
Yeah, sorry, yeah. But as a little kid, I remember seeing Tully do that, and I'm like, nobody else is doing that. That's awesome,
Right. It was something new. It was a slingshot suplex. That was his basically his finisher. He would pick him up like a suplex, turn him around, drop him on the top rope, and sling him back over for the slam. Anderson actually brought out two unique moves at the time. I don't recall anybody else before him ever doing the spine buster the way he did it. They picked people up and dropped them down, but he was throwing them to the ropes, catching them, and spinning around and slamming them down. And they called it the spine buster when he did it. But the other one in particular was he picked them up for a suplex, it looked like, and dropped them right back down their face and called it the gourd buster. And that was one of my favorites at the time. I don't know why nobody does the gourd buster. No one's picked back up on that one yet.
It's probably too dangerous now. Everything's too dangerous now.
But there's a way they could. I mean, back then the way they pulled that off was, of course, they tucked their chin for one. His arm is up under there. They got a hand down there as well to help block their face and their nose from smashing into the mat. So I mean, it's a doable thing. And
Unless
I just
you're
don't know- I
James
don't know-
Ellsworth,
or
because you have no
Ellsworth.
chin to tuck.
The only thing Ellsworth can, well, he doesn't have to worry about it then, does he? The only thing Ellsworth can do, and Ray's watching him and he knows this. All he can do is cheerlead for his girl out there. Yay! Go Carmella! Carmella!
That is not my girl.
That's your girl. The moonwalking,
No.
trash talking. What? Princess of Staten Island? She says or something.
Princess of Staten Island, but that is not my girl.
You know, I got on Google and I found out Carmella's measurements. It's 20. She's straight up and down.
Jesus. See, now I would love.
You gave her 20 at least.
Wow. How about 20, 21, 20? At least give her a little bit of a nut somewhere.
Oh no!
Oh my God.
Seriously, and like I said, I love the personality that Carmella has. You don't see it on TV, but if you go to a house show, you'll see the absolute personality that she brings out with her, and it's something. She's funny, she's entertaining when she's not in a televised event.
I've seen her do. I've heard her do interviews other places. I've heard her do some of her interview that she did with Lillian Garcia. I've seen her Snapchat. I've seen different. She's a fun-loving person. She's all about life. She's not this stuck-up snob that she portrays. She's one hell of a person. She's definitely someone that I would hang out with and I would love to be around just because she's the life of the party.
And she probably smells like watermelon and apricot jelly, but that's beside the point.
Watermelon.
The bad thing about it is the poor thing looks like they took an anorexic skeleton and stretched some overly tanned skin over it. The poor thing.
Now, do you guys know what she did before wrestling?
She was a cheerleader for the Houston Texans and I believe the New England Patriots, and also she was a dancer for the Brooklyn Nets.
That's funny. I was gonna say a 2x4 at Home Depot, but yours sounds better though.
Damn.
No, Ray is actually correct. I just read it earlier though about what she did before. There were some of the other stars and what they did before they get into wrestling, and yeah, I didn't know she was a former Laker girl and a cheerleader for the Patriots and stuff like that. That was new to me.
And Chris, she couldn't have been a 2x4 because that would have meant that her proportions wouldn't have been equal. She would have had to have been a 4x4.
Or 2x2.
2x2, 4x4, 6x6, something like that. Something with equal dimensions.
I'm sorry.
Well, that's what she did. Hacksaw used to bring her to the ring with him.
Oh.
Damn.
Anyway.
All right. You know what? I have a faction I want to bring up.
What's that?
Now, a lot of people wanted to I don't know, say the Shield. Was the Shield one of the greatest factions? I think they were, but this isn't a faction I'm going with. That's just an honorable mention. I want to go with Bobby the Brain Heenan's little faction back then.
The Heenan family.
Yes, the Heenan
I don't know
family.
if you can really consider that a little faction. That's a huge faction.
Well, that was the hint of sarcasm behind the little. He managed just about everybody there was back then, specifically tag teams. But
which incarnation of the Heenan family?
See, again, it's a tough call. I would have to go with when he was managing Andre and had that crew.
So he had Andre, he had Big John Studd, he had Haku.
Yep. He had.
Did he have Bundy still, or?
Yeah, I think he did. I believe he also had the Barbarian at one point too.
At one point, yes.
But back
he had
then,
quite a few people actually over the years. I mean, it's hard to tell which faction was. I mean, which incarnation is which technically. I mean, I can say at one point he had he had Adrian Adonis, and he got rid of him and traded him basically to Jimmy Hart. He got King Kong Bundy. He had Bundy and Studd, and actually I don't think Andre was with him at the time. It was no. I don't know. I can't remember if Andre was there when Studd was there too or not.
No, because he used because he used like Bundy and Stud to torment Andre to the point where I think he actually turned to Hogan for help.
Could have been what it was, and yeah.
That was back when I was conceived as a child, so I have to, historyize that one.
Yeah, I'm looking at something right here. It says, as part of the storyline explaining Andre's leave of absence from the WWF due to health problems and a tour of Japan, the Heenan family campaigned to have Andre suspended for failing to show for matches against Stud and Bundy, and later to require a lifetime suspension from the WWF if they could prove that a masked man competing as a giant machine was Andre. I remember that.
Right, I remember that as well.
But now he had, it was the Islanders, wasn't it? Haku and Tama. He had them.
Yeah. Yes. That was mid '80s,
right?
late '80s. He had them both. Yes.
Around 87, 88, I think, somewhere in there. Well, between 86 and 88, probably. I don't know, but Heenan had, Ray's right. Heenan had a very large faction. I mean, over the years, they came and went. He even at one point had Arn and Tully, who had left WCW and the Four Horsemen, and went
to
when
they came in as the Brainbusters.
Exactly, but they never got the fair shake they should have. I thought there, they didn't get to really showcase their talent like they could have, because anybody that came from WCW, Vince would take and just twist them around to where they weren't important or anything. So it felt, anyways.
Now, I would have to say that I enjoy the AWA version of the Heenan family, just because I'm a big Nick Bockwinkel fan, and I liked Ken Patera's hair.
Ken Patera's hair. Didn't he? Didn't he also have? Ain't that when Bockwinkel and Stevens also tagged together?
Yeah, that was way before then. I don't know that Stevens was still there at the time that he had Patera and Mr. Sato, but way back in the mid to late 70s, the first incarnation of the Heenan family did have like Bockwinkel, Ray Stevens, the Blackjacks.
I got it right here for you. 74 to 79, Heenan in the AWA. He managed a team of Bockwinkel and Stevens, and joining them was Bobby Duncombe Sr., that was part of the Heenan family. He went on later to manage the Blackjacks, Lanza and Mulligan. In 79, it says he received new members in the Masked Superstar, Killer Carl Cox, Professor Tora Tanaka, and Ernie Ladd. From 79 to 84, he reformed it with Nick Bockwinkel, adding the Super Destroyer Mark II and Ken Patera and Mr. Saito. So there you go. You're talking 79 to 84, Mike, right there.
Yeah. But you know me, I'm a big Bockwinkel fan. I think that he's what Ric Flair always aspired to be, even though Flair had the more illustrious career. I honestly feel that Bockwinkel, had he had the opportunities that Flair had it been the same time, that we wouldn't even be talking about Ric Flair today.
Now, Ray, what all do you know about Bockwinkel? Are you very familiar with him?
Not so much, but I do know that he never stepped foot into the WWE, so it's still beyond me how he's in the WWE Hall of Fame.
Well, for the same reason why some of the other people who weren't in WWE, because they were major parts of the business back in the day, basically. Go back and watch him on YouTube if you ever get a chance, and watch some of the matches that Nick Bockwinkel had with Jerry Lawler, Nick Bockwinkel and Larry Zbyszko, Nick Bockwinkel and Hulk Hogan.
I don't
Nick
want to,
Bockwinkel,
and you can't make me.
Oh, I can.
Nick
I
Bockwinkel
will.
actually, since the WWE pretty much owns the AWA, he is a part of the WWE history. They own WCW, and Nick Bockwinkel was also commissioner for the WCW for a good period of time as well.
If you look at it that way, true.
Those are all reasons that he belongs in the WWE Hall of Fame. If you're not even going to mention his wrestling career.
Right now, his wrestling career was great, though. I mean, as a tag team or an individual champion, he would insult you, and you wouldn't even know you've been insulted. You would smile and thank him for it because he had a way with words. He would speak very eloquently when he talked to you, but at the same time, he's running you in the ground, and you just don't even feel like he's doing it. But he was very sharp tongued as far as stuff like that. I've got another one for you that's similar to the first family with Bobby Heenan. This is Jimmy Hart. And I'm wondering, let's see, which one came first? Jimmy Hart started his, it looks like, it says in the late 70s and early 80s as well. So Heenan would have started around 74, so I guess Heenan would have come first. But Jimmy Hart called his the first family of professional wrestling. And he didn't just have a couple of people. It was like he was always bringing somebody in to try and get rid of Jerry Lawler over the years. So he had people such as Norvell Austin, who was 1/3 of the original Midnight Express, along with Dennis Condrey and Randy Rose. He had Ox Baker, King Kong Bundy. Later on brought in Dennis Condrey. Sabu the Wild Man, Chick Donovan, there's Bobby Eaton, Wayne Ferris, which was the Honky Tonk Man, Buddy Landell, the American Heartthrob Austin Idol, and the list goes on and on. I mean, Kamala, Larry Latham, which was one of the Moondogs, Kendo Nagasaki, Jim Neidhart, the Iron Sheik, Kevin Sullivan, Lynn Denton, the Russian Invader, the Bruise Brothers, Coco Beware, Rick Rude, Randy Savage, Eddie Gilbert, Tommy Rich, Tony Anthony. I mean, gosh, there's nobody that came through there that wasn't a part of the first family. It seemed like that if they were a heel. And it was massive throughout the years. It's just like Bobby Heenan, though. I mean, everybody wanted Jimmy Hart as their manager. If you were in the South, you wanted Hart as your manager. I didn't call him the mouth of the South for nothing, basically. Of course, that's before your time, though, Ray. I do know that. It's way before your time. You didn't get to see Memphis at all, being you were in the North and everything. I understand that.
Well,
but
he also managed another faction that I feel needs to get legitimate honorable mention. And you mentioned Kevin Sullivan, and that faction would have to be, the Dungeon of Doom.
Right. In his WCW years.
You look at the Dungeon of Doom. It was more or less a misfit group of former WWE guys, aside from Kevin Sullivan. I mean, you had the Zodiac, who was Beefcake. You had the Shark, which was Earthquake. You had Kamala. You had you had like a giant mummy in there. I can't remember what the hell his name was, but I think that was actually Van Hammer.
You had the Barbarian was a part of it as well.
Right, you had Ming the Barbarian, the Faces of Fear, who was also known as Haku and Barbarian. You had the Giant.
Ray's talking about the Yeti.
The Yeti, yes, the Yeti. You had, and that was managed by Kevin Hart at one point. I mean, Kevin Hart. Jimmy Hart at one point. I got Kevin Sullivan and Jimmy Hart.
You're going to learn today.
Yeah. No, I mean, I would feel that they were a pretty dominant faction in WCW, especially, with their battles against the Four Horsemen.
They had a lot of time. I mean, Jimmy Hart's been around. We all know he was in the WWF for a while as well. Managed a lot of great tag teams there. Managed the Hart Foundation for a while.
But we can get into who Jimmy Hart managed, when we do our greatest managers episode.
Now, would you consider the WWF time to be any kind of a stable he had when he managed multiple people there? Would you call that a stable, a faction, or would you just say it's people he managed? To me, it's just people he managed.
I would say it's people he managed because, right, you never seen them at the same place at the same time.
Right.
For the exception of when you had the formation of the Natural Disasters, and they were in the ring at the same time with the Nasty Boys.
Yeah. But that's pretty much it.
And maybe the occasional Survivor Series match.
Well, yeah. Yeah, now one of the people that he had at one point that I thought that was great, that was in the Memphis area, he had Troy Graham was his name. I'm trying to think of what they actually called him under the mask, and I can't remember what it is right now. He was also in a tag team with Rick McGraw. They called them the New York Dolls. They were trying to imitate the Fabulous Ones in a way. But anyway, Troy Graham was there as under a mask of some sort as well, and he was very tough guy. Anyway, Mike, are you with us? Or I see you might be on break for a second. I think Mike's away a second.
Well, here's another.
You know what?
one.
You spoke of WCW. What about the Varsity Club? You mentioned Kevin Sullivan as well. He's tied to the Varsity Club also with him, Rick Steiner, Mike Rotunda, Dr. Death Steve Williams.
Right, but I wouldn't really say that was too strong of a dominant faction because realistically, how long were they around?
You know, I don't remember how long they lasted, to be honest with you. I remember them being together. I remember them having some gold. Had some tag gold for sure. They may have had the TV title at one point. I think they were U.S. Tag Champions. But you had a guy who had been around for a long time, as dominant guy, Dr. Death Steve Williams. Mike Rotundo's had a great career. He was a very good, actual wrestler, not just a bruiser to get out there and fight. He had a very technical wrestler. Rick Steiner was a great technical wrestler, really, but it showed he could be a bruiser at times too. But I thought they were pretty good for their time.
Rotundo's actually been in 3 different factions. He's been in the Varsity Club. He was in the $1 Million Corporation. And then he was in the NWO.
Well, don't forget, you also left one out then because he was in the York Foundation with Alexandra York. Remember they took him, Ricky Morton, which they called Richard Morton. There was Terry Taylor, and I do believe Mike Rotunda was a part of that, was he not? Mike, I think, or am I mistaking him with somebody else? You want to look that up and see. I might be mistaking him with somebody different. Mike, do you remember?
I do not remember.
Oh,
that
we're
is
about to find out.
I do not remember.
I would tell you in just one second. It wasn't they didn't last very long. I know that group didn't. So.
Well, you wanna mention WCW, and I have another faction that I feel that you guys may not bring up, and that is the Dangerous Alliance.
Oh no, you got to bring that up. We actually, if you didn't bring them up, I was going to. And then just for the record, before we go there, Alexandra York was the woman that led it. Michael Wall Street, Terrence Taylor, Richard Morton, Thomas Rich, and Mr. Hughes. That's who they had in there, and they made them go by their full names to make it look more professional as far as the foundation went. But anyway,
yeah, it was probably like early '90s.
Yeah, it was between 90 and 92. It says right here, so you're right. But now the Dangerous Alliance was great.
Which is funny because he came back to WWE or WWF as IRS to join the $1 Million Corporation, and then when he left WWF, he went back to WCW as Michael Wall Street again. He's always had this money aspect around his career, whether it's Wall Street or IRS or something.
Well, except for his early years when he tag teamed, when him and Barry Windham were a tag team.
Right. But anyway, so the Dangerous Alliance. I mean, you had. I'll add Medusa in there because yes, she may have been a valet, but she was in there. You had Steve Austin, which was stunning Steve Austin. You had managed by Paul E. Dangerously. You had Larry Zbyszko. You had Rick Rude. You had Arn Anderson. I feel like I'm missing somebody.
It was Anderson, Eaton, Zbyszko, Medusa, Michael P.S. Hayes as a manager, Rick Rude, and Steve Austin.
That's right. I was missing Bobby Eaton. And Michael P.S. Hayes, I don't know. They
claim him as a manager, basically. But did you know that's not the only Dangerous Alliance that he had?
That who had?
Paul E.
Yeah, he had a Dangerous Alliance and what was it?
He had one
AWA?
in ECW, AWA and ECW both.
Yeah. There were 3 different Dangerous Alliances.
I wouldn't really consider his Dangerous Alliance and ECW as a Dangerous Alliance because he owned the whole company.
true, but they were still some kind of a group together formed by that. So you had what Heyman? Was there someone called 911?
Yes.
There was.
911 would just come out and demolish people, just for no reason, just beat them up.
I didn't know who it was. I mean, the Dark Patriot, that was Doug Gilbert under a mask, I believe. Don Morocco, Eddie Gilbert, Jimmy Snuka, Shane Douglas, Sherry Martel, Sabu, and Taz.
Yes, I actually remember all of them there.
Kind of a solid group right there as well. But to me, though, the WCW Dangerous Alliance that you talked about a moment ago, that was the best formation of it, though, that he had.
Oh no, that was the more dominant one because you had tag golds, you had the world. That's when Rick Rude won his world title, was with them, I believe. You know, you had Steve Austin as the United States champion. I mean, they were the gold digging, dominating faction of WCW at the time, and I feel that they were stronger than what the Horsemen were.
I wouldn't go that far.
No, I would definitely not go that far.
I would.
Maybe due to personal preference, I wouldn't go that far. I don't know, but I mean, to me, Dangerous Alliance. I mean, also you can take consideration if you're going to compare them to the Four Horsemen. Let's do this, because the WCW version, if you take all the members, you got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8 total. So if you're going to be that way, let's go ahead and say Ric Flair, Arn Anderson, Tully Blanchard, Barry Windham, Ole Anderson, Lex Luger. I guess we got to throw that stupid Mongo in there as much as I don't want to, but he was a mainstay for a while.
You could throw Sting in there too.
Well, Sting was there for like a month, and that wasn't really meant to. That they double teamed him, or they turned their back on him as quick as they could. But
that's
you got
true.
Throw one more member in the mix. Any one of them that you want that was a replacement. Yeah,
Jeff
you can
Jarrett.
go with the.
You can throw Jeff Jarrett.
You can go with Jarrett. You can go with Roma, or I said Roma. You could go with Sid. I mean, you could go with Benoit, Malenko. Take the pick of an eighth one, and take all 8 of them and put them against them.
Well, the question then goes is, okay, who's the Ric Flair of the Dangerous Alliance?
Probably
Rick
Rude.
Oh man, look, Arn Anderson. That's like he's in both groups. You couldn't really pit both against each other technically. It'd be like Arn versus Arn. Who wins? Arn. That's the crazy part about it. If you just talk about success rate, though, the Four Horsemen in general over the years, if you take their variations of it, because you got only 4 of them versus 8 here, were probably a more successful faction. They stayed together longer. In a short period of time, though, the Dangerous Alliance did a lot of damage. They did a lot of stuff. They grabbed titles. They were in a War Games match, which in my opinion was the best War Games match probably that I watched of all of them that they had.
That's why I said if you take the biggest names, you take the top 4 guys at that point in time against a Four Horsemen team that was running at that point in time, the Dangerous Alliance was more dominant, realistically. And I'm not saying because, they had 8 guys. Say you take Rude, Austin, Anderson, and Zbyszko. Boom. There's your 4 guys against the Four Horsemen.
Leave Anderson out and put Eaton in his place because Anderson belongs to the Four Horsemen ultimately.
Oh, Jesus God. All right, fine. We'll do that then. And even if you do that, you're still looking at the fact that, the Dangerous Alliance was more dominant. They really were.
So would you be putting Austin and Zbyszko as a tag team together at the time? And Rick Rude being your Ric Flair? Because if that's the case, I would take Arn and Tully over Eaton and Austin as a tag team.
And I would definitely take Flair over Rude.
Wait, didn't you just say Zbyszko and Austin first?
Did I say Zbyszko?
Yeah.
Who would you have? I mean, let's say, would you do
I
Eaton
would take
and Zbyszko?
I would take Zbyszko and Austin.
Okay.
So then Eaton would be your singles guy.
Yes.
Well, no, because
Barry Windham's going to eat him then.
But he only picked 4. You got Steve Austin and Rick Rude, and then, I guess Zbyszko and Eaton at that point. Okay, yeah, 4.
Yeah, because I wouldn't really consider Michael P.S. Hayes.
But see, Bobby Eaton wasn't he was not a singles competitor though, really. The closest thing you would
back
have, I mean,
then, back
Rick
then,
Rude,
neither was Austin. Austin was more of a tag team guy.
Yeah,
he was.
At
That's what
that
I'm
point,
saying.
yeah, you'd have to have Eaton and Austin as your tag team, and Zbyszko as your singles
as your other
competitor.
individual. Right.
Yeah, it'd be Rude as your top guy, Zbyszko as your mid-card title guy, and then you'd have to have Austin and Eaton together as your tag team with your P.S. Hayes running around on the outside being J.J. Dillon.
No way. I would put Paulie Dangerously running around on the outside as your J.J. Dillon.
Yeah, you would. It wouldn't be Hayes.
It definitely would not be Hayes. There's no way in hell.
No, Medusa would probably be involved just trying to escort Rick Rude to where he was going and everything, because he's the kind of guy that would have the valet.
Medusa would be the Four Horsemen version. I mean, would be Fifi.
How long?
I can see it now. I can see it now. She walks down to the ring with Rude, but she's riding Space Mountain later that night.
What does it say? Longest line? No, was it? How did it go?
Oldest ride.
Oldest ride, longest line.
Longest line.
Exactly. What about now? How long when in WCW when Austin was there? How long did he have Lady Blossom with him? Is that if he was a single only, and then when he went to the tag team with Pillman, he didn't have her no more?
Correct.
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
Oh, and now it's another one. You forgot about the Four Horsemen. There was Pillman.
I don't remember Pillman being there.
He was a horseman for a hot minute.
When Monday Nitro first started, Brian Pillman was a Four Horseman.
He was a horseman for a hot minute. That was about it.
He was he was about a year or so. He was a horseman.
Let's see here. We'll see if we can find out real quick.
He was a Four Horseman right before he left, because he started becoming the personification of the loose cannon, so to speak. Because then he showed up in ECW, and then he showed up in the WWE. But he started going nuts to the point like they couldn't trust Pillman in the Horsemen.
Here you go.
They
In
thought he was gonna fly off the
1995.
handle.
1995. It says here. Originally, he was to be renamed California Brian. It says they got scrapped after a week. As a babyface, he moved to California to pursue a career, yada, yada, blah, blah, blah. And here we go. Pillman wrestled the first match on the inaugural episode of Monday Nitro, but defeating Jushin Thunder Liger. After costing Ric Flair a match to Arn Anderson at Fall Brawl, Flair recruited the help of Sting to team up against Pillman and Anderson at Halloween Havoc. Pillman and Anderson attacked Flair before the match, forcing Sting to come out alone. Let's see, skip through here a little bit. Oh, Flair came out at the last minute with a bandage on his head, tagged Sting, and immediately turned and attacked him, removing the fake bandage from his head to show it was a plan between Pillman, Anderson, and Flair from the start. Thus, these actions signaled the reuniting of the Four Horsemen. This incarnation was Flair, Anderson, Pillman, and Benoit. Wow.
How long was Pillman in there for?
Not very long. Let's see what it says here. Because it says 95 to 96, loose cannon and departure. At the end of 95, Pillman developed his loose cannon gimmick, cultivating a reputation for unpredictable behavior. During his time, Pillman changed his once Hollywood blonde and flying Brian clean athletic look for an edgy, out-of-control image. Even his allies in the Horsemen, especially Anderson, were wary of his behavior and tried in vain to keep him in check. And yada, yada, yada. That didn't last long at all, it looks like. So, Pillman added Kevin Sullivan as Booker in 96. Yeah, maybe a year at the longest. Not even quite a year.
Right.
It wasn't really the Horseman for the whole time. He was with Arn Anderson for a bit, and then they eventually reunited as a Horseman later on. September 4th in 95, at the end of 95. So September, October, November, 3 months. 3 or 4 months tops.
But he was still in there. You know?
He was in there, yes. You are correct. I do. That's why, I guess that's why I don't remember him. It was such a short-lived thing. And to me,
I told you it was
versions of the
minute.
Horsemen, those versions of the Horsemen weren't the same to me. That's why I didn't pay attention to it. Because if you weren't Arn Tully, Flair, and Barry Windham, or before, to me, a lot of those just weren't Horsemen. I never recognized Mongo McMichael as a real Horseman.
He's not
That's
even
my
a real
opinion.
wrestler.
That was just my opinion. So, take it for what it's worth. But your Dangerous Alliance, back to your Dangerous Alliance again, though. I mean, awesome group. You are correct on that. And I loved the War Games match they were in. Do you guys remember who they faced in the War Games?
I have a feeling it was like the Legion of Doom and Dusty Rhodes or something.
No. Ricky Steamboat was one. Dustin Rhodes was another. Nikita Koloff, Lex Luger, and I'm drawing a blank on the fifth. I think it was 5-on-5.
Yeah,
I'll see if I can find out for you.
Well, while you're looking that up, I just want to say there's so many other factions, and I noticed that we've been mainly concentrating on WWE not WWE, WCW and like AWA and NWA factions and stuff. There's a faction that I want to mention that I can't believe no one has mentioned yet themselves, and that would have to be the Corporation.
I think we were slowly but surely working our way from company to company. I think it's what we were more or less doing for the most part. WWE's got quite a few factions that were in there over the years, and you're right, the Corporation is probably one of the top ones there.
Well, you also have to remember, back in that era, you had, when you had the NWO out and the Horsemen out and everything like that, WWE had, you had the DOA, you had Los Boricuas, you had Kai En Tai, you had the Nation of Domination, you had the Oddities. WWE was faction filled.
Did you really get all that? Why do you think they had so many of the factions at that time? Oh, and by the way, Ray, Barry Windham was the other one we couldn't think of. Sting, it was Sting, Steamboat, Windham, Dustin Rhodes, Nikita. It wasn't Lex Luger. Okay. My bad. But anyway, there were so many of those guys, so many of these different factions at one time they had. It was like just a faction war.
I think it was because of the fact that it was superstar overload. They had so many guys on the roster and employed that they just didn't know what to do with them.
And that could very well be.
That's got to be what it is. But, the Corporation was probably one of the most dominant factions ever to be in the WWE. Look at the power that you had there. You had Shamrock, you had the Boss Man, you had Triple H, you had The Rock.
The McMahons.
You had Kane in there at one point, the McMahons, and then when they formed with the Ministry of Darkness, you had Farouk, Bradshaw, you had The Undertaker. It was probably the most dominant faction, aside from DX, that they ever had in the WWE in the 90s.
What came first, NWO or Corporation?
NWO.
Do you think the Corporation was just a knockoff and a mimic of NWO?
NWO showed up in... What's that? No, the NWO showed up in the summer of 96. The Rock debuted at Survivor Series 95. The Rock didn't start coming into his own as The Rock, the People's Champ, the Great One, yada, 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 until probably about 97.
See, I always wondered if the Corporation wasn't just their way of mimicking the NWO and trying to bounce back off of that loss. Because when the NWO first started, that's when the ratings first started really skyrocketing for WCW. And McMahon does like, to take shots at his opponents like that sometimes. So Just made me wonder if it had anything to do with it at one point ever at any
No.
time.
Definitely not. There's no. I think it was just, McMahon having his own group. I mean, it could have been, but it wasn't exactly an outside group like the NWO was portrayed in WCW.
Right. It's what you mentioned about superstar overload, though. All these stars were now part of the corporation. McMahon was running it basically, and WCW Bischoff was running basically as a part of the NWO. Their two factions favor in a lot of ways.
Right. Well, I mean,
that's why I question it. I mean, I'm not saying they did do it, but that's why I wonder that. Did they have anything to do with it whatsoever? I wonder.
Well, here's another group that I forgot to mention that was in WWE in the 90s, and you're looking at the reunited Hart Foundation: Bret, Owen, Anvil, Bulldog, and Pillman.
I would consider them a stable. Yes, I would.
Mm-hmm.
I would. I mean, because and to me, they would have been a good one too, if things had all gone a certain way, obviously. But I don't think that they really got out of that stable formation what they wanted. I don't think.
Well, I think one of the biggest problems is the fact that Pillman dying was one of the falters. Okay, one of the problems, because they were looking to really, really, really push Pillman. When he died, that left a hole. They obviously couldn't do the whole tag team between Bret and Anvil anymore, because technically now Bret's a singles competitor. At this point, Bret's a former World Heavyweight Champion. He's Intercontinental Champion at one point. And then, Bret leaving, when Bret left, well, Bulldog soon followed, and Anvil soon followed. And Owen chose to stay. And I think they punished him to an extent, because the family leaves, he's the only one left to take the brunt of everything. He ends up as the white guy in the Nation of Domination. And which is funny, because the Nation of Domination started out with Farouk. It started out bigger than what it was. I mean, you had Crush in there. You had Savio Vega in there. You had those two white rapper guys in there. I can't remember what their names were.
PG-13.
Yeah.
That's Bill Dundee's kid, Jamie Dundee, and Wolfie D. They were from Memphis. Yes. That was during when they had that talent exchange time. Jarrett came up as Double J and all that too.
Right, but I mean, it started out as that. People seem to forget that the Nation of Domination was not what it was when The Rock was in there, and that actually started the branch off of the DOA and of Brian Lee, Brian Adams, Brian Lee, and the Harris brothers. People seem, or was it the Harris brothers?
I believe so.
Skull and 8-Ball. Yeah.
I want to say it was him. I believe it was.
I mean, how many other white twins did we have wrestling that were that big? Not for nothing, But people seem, but like I said, Owen ended up in the Nation of Domination as well at one point. But I think the Hart Foundation would have been a lot bigger, but like I said, the problem is you couldn't really have a real tag team except for Bulldog and Owen, and then Pillman passing away, Bret is the singles guy, and then that just left Anvil to just float. I think they messed up when they put Bulldog and Owen together. They should have put Owen together with Anvil, and then had the Bulldog continue the singles competitor.
I was about to ask you guys that same question. All right, and Mike, since Ray brought it up, let me get your opinion on it then. I was wondering what you guys would have thought if they reformed the Hart Foundation tag team, but with Owen and Anvil instead of Bret and Anvil. How would that have worked out, you guys think, ultimately?
I think it would have worked out great, in my opinion, because Brett and Owen were more or less mirror images of each other in the ring.
Yep. Mike?
Owen was a little bit more high-flying, but essentially mirror images.
See, the thing about it is that the reason the Hart Foundation didn't last isn't because of anybody leaving or anybody dying. It's because that the WWE was going towards the Attitude Era, and the Hart Foundation was everything against the Attitude Era. But changing up who went with who wouldn't do a damn thing.
Explain a little bit more on that part about the Harts being against him. Because I never heard anything like it before.
The Hart Foundation. The Hart Foundation, when they were coming in, they were for more. They were for higher morals. It was not a. They were the quintessential face, which was changing. What they wanted to push as face was changing, and it wasn't jiving. It wasn't. There was more of an old school feel that would have set better in WCW. Had the Hart Foundation been in WCW to go against maybe the NWO, it would have been a little bit different, because the company didn't go to the dark place as fast as the WWF did at the time. Because they jumped head first into that Attitude Era, trying to compete with the NWO and WCW for those ratings.
See, I can argue that, though, because I think that they would have fit in very well in the Attitude Era, because they were all anti-American.
They weren't then,
They had the attitude to stick it, to want to have a problem with America. Pittsburgh, it's the toilet of America, and all this other stuff.
But you're talking different error. You're talking different error there. That's not what it was. That's what they turned it into, and that's part of the reason why Bret Hart left. He didn't like the way he was treated. He didn't like the way they were trying to portray him. Now, WCW didn't do him any better. They actually made it worse, and they let Goldberg get a hold of him and end his career, but that's another story for another day.
I guess I can see where you're coming from on that.
I'm going to throw a twist at you guys now, and throw this one at you.
Okay, M. Night.
If Owen Hart had followed and went to WCW, will we have Owen Hart here today?
Yes.
Yes. Not only would we have had Owen Hart here, but we would have had a multiple-time World Heavyweight Champion, Owen Hart.
No, we wouldn't. No.
Where would he have been world champion? WCW?
He would never have been world champion, because Owen didn't want to continue wrestling. When he was done, he was done. He had already paid his house off. He and his wife had a plan. And this is the saddest part about the Owen Hart tragedy.
I do remember hearing this, too.
He was going to wrestle out his contract with the WWE. That's why he didn't leave. Because he had planned it to where this was it. When he was done with this contract, he would have had enough money to retire, go back to Canada, and be a firefighter like he always wanted. He wasn't in it for the entertainment. He wasn't in it for anything but to make a living and to make his life for his family. When he was 24 years old, he had his house paid for. He was very good with his money. He had a goal. And I think he only had like a year left, and he was done when he died. That is the biggest tragedy. That's what people don't know unless you really dive in and really research it and really look into it. But that's what the plan was for Owen Hart. That's why he didn't leave. He didn't want to wrestle for his entire life. He wanted to stop while his body was still in good shape and go life with his family. And thanks to stupid gimmicks, he died.
Well, you mentioned that. Do you think that Vince punished Owen for everybody else leaving, like I mentioned?
I don't think that he punished Owen for everyone else leaving. I think Owen was punished because they had nothing to do with him after everyone else left.
Except for the
didn't
Blue
really
Blazer
did.
thing was good though.
They didn't
the Blue
really
Blazer
build
thing-
Owen
He was doing the Nation of Domination thing, and all of a sudden, boom, let's go do the Blue Blazer.
Well, the Nation was
Like
done.
I think if Owen
What do
would
you
have been
do with
alive, well, hold on. I think if Owen hadn't passed and he was still in WWE, I think he would have at least gotten at least one world championship.
No, he never
or at
would
least
have.
before his contract was up.
But
He
with
never
the
would
attitude, with the Attitude Era, I don't think he would have got one in the Attitude Era. He didn't fit that mold for Attitude like you had
Right.
with the Stone Cold and the Rock and Triple H and all
If
that group there.
Brett-
I mean, would he deserve one? I would say yes. He probably deserved
yeah.
to be a champion, definitely. The question is whether he deserved it or not. Would they have actually put it on him in an Attitude Era type situation? I can't see him fitting in as a champion in the Attitude Era.
If Brett had left a different way, maybe. But after the way that all went down, it was never going to happen. Vince was never going to put the title on a Hart. The wounds were still too fresh, and the ego's too big.
Are you talking about any title in general, or are you talking about the World Heavyweight title?
The world
title.
heavyweight, the world title.
Okay, because
the
I was
only
going
one
to say,
that
when
matters.
Bulldog came back, even though it was the hardcore championship, Bulldog still was a hardcore champion. And I believe he won the other title when he came back.
When was it Owen had didn't Owen have the European Championship also at one point?
Yeah, he did for a while.
Yeah.
But we got a little off kilter there, boys.
Well, I mean, no, that's actually a good discussion to have about that, though. I mean, that's what we're supposed to be talking about here, and that's a good thing to have. There's nothing wrong with opposing views either. I mean, we can't have the same view on everything, obviously, and it's good to get both those sides out like that as well. But I mean, I do have to agree. I would decide with Mike on the World Heavyweight Championship in WWE, and I don't think Owen could have went to WCW and gotten one there either, because you're looking at the NWO time and the time of Goldberg and all those guys are pushing there, and then all of a sudden DDP gets that push thanks to the NWO, and he gets his title runs. Now, if he was going to get one there, do you know what it would have been? It would have been during that weird time frame when you seen David Arquette and all those other people, get a belt thrown on them. It would have been during that time frame, if anything.
But he would have been long done before then, though. That's the thing, because he was a goal-oriented person, and his goal was to not be there that late.
But I have heard that somewhere before. The story you told a moment ago, I don't know where it was. I've heard it. It's been a while, but when you told it, it started coming back to me. I do remember that happening. I don't know if I saw his wife talking about that. That was her story.
I do
what they were going to do.
I do believe it's in a biography about him. I do believe it's in that book.
Yeah, but then
that was
unless you actually have audio or video of Owen saying that, it could literally just be hearsay.
Well, the proof was there, though. I mean, even Brett will tell you that that's why he didn't leave.
Right.
He didn't leave because he didn't want to do it for his entire life.
Well, now let me flip the script on this one. If Bulldog had not gone to WCW, would Bulldog still be alive?
No. Bulldog died because of steroid abuse.
No,
Not
only that. Bulldog also was found dead with painkiller overdose. He messed his back up in WCW. He got power slammed outside the ring onto the trap door that the Ultimate Warrior was supposed to come out of, and ruptured a disc in his back.
That's not. I mean, it was not a painkiller overdose. The autopsy said it was a heart attack.
Well, that could be caused from a painkiller overdose, though.
But he had the heart of an 80-year-old man because of steroid use. He was a ticking time bomb. Painkillers you cannot continuously use high dose steroids and not hurt your heart. and not damage yourself.
Well, I mean, look at how bad a shape that Dynamite Kid's in these days. Is he even? I don't know if he's even alive still or not. I think he is.
He's
But he's
actually got a GoFundMe to help pay for his medical bills the last time I seen to try to get him home from the hospital.
He's got so much. He's in such bad shape from it. And he himself had. They said he abused painkillers and steroids both. And he's in such bad shape right now. It's just pitiful. But
I don't know. I agree. I mean, it's like the Hart Foundation themselves was cursed. I mean, Brett's career ends because of a kick to the head, and then he ends up having a stroke. And I think that kick to the head was what led to him having that stroke a few years later. Owen dying the way he did, Bulldog dying, Pillman dying. Anvil becoming a full-blown alcoholic at one point, to the point that he was in and out of rehabs. I mean, I feel like that it's just, I think that the Hart family is the modern day Von Erichs.
yeah, that can be comparable in a way with the deaths and everything for sure.
It's a curse. It was a curse, and I feel like it all started when Brett left, because he was the rock for WWF for so long.
Now, here's a monkey wrench in your conversation a moment ago here. I was just reading about this right here about Owen remaining with the WWE company. It talks about Brett left the Federation after the event. Both the British Bulldog and Jim Neidhart were granted quick releases from their contracts to jump to WCW. This left Owen as the only Hart family member remaining in the WWF due to his contractual obligations. Unlike Smith and Neidhart, McMahon did not grant Owen a release from his contract, and Owen remained with the company. He was skeptical about returning to WCW anyway, as he was not confident that the organization would use him correctly. Brett has said that the biggest reason Owen did not make the move was because WCW President Eric Bischoff was unwilling to match his WWF contract.
Right, which was ending soon and with a lot more money.
Right, and that's one reason why he would not go over there.
Well,
now, I thought I'd seen something.
It was either that, and that might have been a monkey wrench in what Mike was talking about. Once Owen's contract was up, he wanted to be done. So if he wasn't going to get his contract matched dollar amount, that would have meant he would have had to wrestle longer.
Exactly.
That is true too.
I'm just waiting for the day that Owen and Bulldog are in the Hall of Fame, because they are rightfully deserved a spot in that Hall. They are rightfully deserved
Bulldog
a spot in that Hall
of
Fame. No, he is not.
No, Bulldog is not in the Hall, I don't believe.
There is still a petition going around. Mike, I will find the petition.
Then what was his kid doing there inducting him? Did he go in with the Hart Foundation?
He's not there.
The
Remember,
Natalia
said that Natalia said that if Davey Boy Smith ever made it in, that she thinks that's when his son will return to the WWE, because he'll be there as a part to induct him in and be back as a member of the WWE once again at that point. She says she don't see him coming back before anything like that.
Mike, I will send you the link to the Bulldog thing. Actually, you can look up Davey Boy Smith petition for the Hall of Fame. There are wrestlers, there are actors, there are so many people trying to get this petition going. There are at least 30 to 40,000 signatures, I believe, on this petition. I've actually signed it as well. But you have celebrities, pro wrestlers, all making video pleas to say, hey, I feel that the British Bulldog deserves to be in that Hall of Fame.
Now, would you put him solo or as a tag team?
You put him solo.
What about Dynamite Kid? As a tag team, they were a great tag team.
The Dynamite Kid has already turned around and said if they offer him the Hall of Fame spot, he will spit in their face.
How many times? Listen. How many times did Bruno Sammartino say no? How many times did Superstar? I'm sorry, not Super. Yeah, Superstar Billy Graham. How many times did he say no? He'd have nothing to do with the company. These people all say Ultimate Warrior. They'll never have anything to do with Vince McMahon and the company again. Bret Hart said the same thing. He would never come back to that company again, and they've all kissed and made up at one point. And it's been usually they say it's been Triple H. It's been the person to step in and mend the fences.
It has been, but you look at it this way: if the Bulldogs go in as a tag team, it'll be after the Dynamite Kid's dead.
That might be too. I don't know.
No, that could be next year. But Owen
Bulldog deserves to go in as a singles competitor over being a tag team competitor. He accomplished more, I feel, after the British Bulldogs than he did with them. Yeah, he won tag team gold again when he was with Owen. But look at how many he was an Intercontinental champion, hardcore champion, the first ever European champion.
They're all valid points. True. I think we should go now. What I think we'll do, just go ahead and jump from this. So we got 47 minutes left. We still got quite a few more factions I want to bring up and all.
Yeah, I got one I want to bring up.
Not only that, but there's a EFED faction they call the Bald Beautiful Besties, and one of them is out of New Jersey, and the other one is in California himself. Now, you guys may know the guy in Jersey calls himself Chuckles or something like that. I don't know. It's a weird name he goes by. There's a guy in California, though. I mean, jeez. I mean, I don't even know how to begin to describe him.
They call him Tim the Terrible Testicle.
Iverson.
I hate you guys.
We know. That's why we do this to you every time.
I hate you guys. What's up?
Just so you know what direction we're going, so we don't talk about the same faction we've already talked about. We're headed toward. I don't know. What do you guys want to do? You want to do DX or do you want to do like Evolution?
No.
We're in WWF.
I have one.
We're in
Well,
WWE.
don't forget we still have to get to this week's news as well.
You guys passed over one from the way back when machine that I think deserves to be spoke about.
Well, speak.
And that is Paul Jones' Army.
Oh yes. Now, how could I forget?
Now,
as big
that's
a Jimmy
a
Valiant,
faction.
hey, as big of a Jimmy Valiant fan as I am, how could I forget of the Paul Jones?
I mean,
Army?
you had the Barbarian, the Warlord, Abdullah the Butcher,
Baron
Superstar
Von
Billy
Raschke.
Graham, Rick Rude, Ivan Koloff,
Manny Fernandez,
the Assassins. You had this dominant force. No, they didn't win a whole lot of gold.
Shaska Watley.
Man, they were there, and they were dominant. The people feared them. The crowd hated Paul Jones. It was awesome.
Yeah, this is the thing about factions. I don't think gold matters because, let's face it, there's some guys that win gold and get the damn. There's factions that win gold and get the damn. But you're right, those guys, I mean, every single guy on that list, they didn't get a lot of titles, but man, were they all awesome. I mean, I'm not a big Warlord guy because I thought he was just a big guy with muscles, but all the rest of those guys, freaking amazing. You know what I mean?
Oh yeah, and that's what that's the kind of group that WCW needed to put up against the NWO. If they'd have had enough foresight to get two groups with the quality of the NWO and the quality of Paul Jones' Army and to have them clash, it would have been just a rating spectacular instead of the faux pas that we got with everybody's NWO except Larry Zbyszko.
That's the thing is every guy you mentioned was way past their prime by then. That's what I'm saying. I'm not saying that exact faction, but that ideal. But there wasn't a whole lot of guys at WCW that could have built a faction like that. I mean, you could Sting. I mean, a few other guys. I mean, you couldn't take the Horsemen and really put them there. They were the Horsemen.
Right.
Right.
You know?
Now,
so,
I have to ask Ray a question here because Ray is like the youngin, we're going to call him. He's the youngin of the group here, the whippersnapper, the youngin, whatever you want to call him. Ray, what do you know about Paul Jones' Army? Are you familiar with him in any way?
None whatsoever.
Let me tell you something. There is a very big comparison to the Paul Jones Army and the NWO. I don't know if Mike's caught on to this or thought about this or not, or Tim, either one. But the Paul Jones Army was battled by one man for the most part over a lot of years, and he finally got his retribution on Paul Jones because Paul Jones cut his beard and he cut his hair. He finally got his retribution on Paul Jones and shaved the man's head in the match, and he had everybody turn against him he could and join his army, including Shaska Whatley, Manny Fernandez, Baron Von Raschke, but Handsome Jimmy, or the Boogie Woogie Man at this point, Jimmy Valiant, took on Paul Jones' army by himself practically. In the NWO, it was DDP, it seemed like, for the longest time. He was taking on the NWO, then of course Sting would be there occasionally and everything, so...
Yeah, you're right, Chris. I never really stepped back and thought about it, but the NWO was just a ripoff of Paul Jones' army.
And they did have gold, if you think about it. They had Manny Fernandez and Rick Rude had the tag titles for a while. All right?
Yeah.
They always came. They used to come out to Queens. We Will Rock You, I think it was a song they had. Baron Von Raschke at one point. No, it was not him. Never mind. It wasn't Von Raschke. I think all they had was a tag team gold, come to think of it.
Yeah, I think that's all they ever held was tag team gold.
They never had the TV title. They didn't have the U.S. title. They didn't have the National Heavyweight title. That was retired. So,
but like you said, their point wasn't to dominate and to win gold. Their point was to torment Jimmy Valiant.
Pretty much, yes. That was the mission of Paul Jones, to take out Jimmy Valiant.
I actually just looked up their total championships, and you are correct. Just one tag team title reign. That's it.
Thought so. I thought that was it.
That's it. Yeah, that's it. Just the tag team title was Manny Fernandez and Rick Rude.
But you see, Ray, that's what I'm always talking about wrestling, rehashing everything. They did that with Paul Jones' army against Jimmy Valiant. They did it with NWO versus DDP. But the thing is, it worked for both. It worked both times. Two different eras, and it worked on both times because you had just the right person.
Well, you got to remember, you had the Nexus versus John Cena too.
Exactly.
But you can't really compare. The Nexus is like poo-poo.
Hold on. We're not going to go with the Nexus. Hold on. We're not going to go with the Nexus is like poo-poo. They had the ability. No. They had the ability to make that Nexus angle gold. And they put it to a stop real quick because John Cena said so. If they would have ran with the Nexus, they could have ran a good year or two with that and made
the
something
Nexus
out
was
of it.
full of poo-poo. It was like...
Listen to you. Listen, you're just doing this to make Ray mad at this point. Listen, man.
David Otunga?
Did you guys hear Tim in the background having a heart attack a moment ago? Tim was having a heart attack going, is he serious? And listen to him talking. Tim, step up and tell him what you're trying to say here. Who all do they have in the Nexus, man?
Okay, well, so my thing is this: the Nexus, there was a lot of talent on the Nexus, and yes, with the potential. Yeah, there's always crap guys. I mean, let's look at some of the guys that he had for NWO. There's always garbage with some money. I mean, that's the way things work. But I mean, let's face it. They had a ton of talent. I mean, Wade Barrett. Are you kidding me? That guy was wasted on so many levels. That guy was incredible. You know, and then then there's other guys like Skip Sheffield who was garbage and Harvard. I mean, I love Heath Slater. Don't get me wrong. I mean, there's a crap ton of talent in that group. But,
don't forget, you had Justin Gabriel. You had Daniel Bryant. You had Husky Harris, who is now Bray Wyatt. You had Curtis Axel.
Yeah, it was a 50-50
boys,
guys and total garbage.
Boys, I want you to name me of the Nexus who is Nash, who is Hall, and who is Hogan. I'll wait.
You could compare it like that.
Well, sure you can. If you're going to say it's just like the Nexus is just like the NWO going against DDP.
Who would be Hall? It would be freaking because the guy that started all, in all honesty, was Wade Barrett. I would go with him and Scott Hall because he was the mouthpiece at the beginning. So I would go with him.
I would put them on the same level. Now you find me Nash and find me Hogan, and we'll be in business.
All right, find somebody in the Nexus with a bad quad. Find someone in the Nexus with a bad quad. Who would that be?
Must be Otunga because he does a lot of sitting.
Skip Sheffield destroyed his ankle. Does that count?
Oh, here we go. We got Sheffield.
Yeah.
Yeah. So.
That guy's a dumpster fire anyway.
Who's Hogan?
That guy.
Who's Hogan?
What?
I'm waiting for Hogan still.
Well, then I guess that would be John Cena when he became part of the group.
Ah,
There you go.
there we go.
There you go. And I honestly, for the most part, they didn't have a Nash because they didn't have a big guy that really couldn't do anything. But the other guys carried him, and he just stood there with the big muscles. I guess
Well,
right?
So we'll call the Nexus. We'll call the Nexus the Mickey Mouse Clubhouse chapter of the NWO.
In all seriousness, look. In all seriousness, you can't really compare the two technically. But what we're saying is that the angle that was used is what we're pointing at. We're talking about the angle that's being used in it.
And they also took established stars as opposed to much bands that most people never get.
Well, see, here's something. Well, here's something. And nobody ever seems to want to talk about this. You had in my mind, two phenomenal factions in TNA. You had the Main Event Mafia, which was Samoa Joe, Kurt Angle, Kevin Nash, Booker T, Scott Steiner, and Sting. And then you had Fortune. But then you had Fortune, AJ Styles, Bobby Roode, Frankie Kazarian, and I can't remember who the other guy was. I'm drawing a blank on it.
They were so great you can't remember who the other guy was.
No, but what I'm saying is, no, it wasn't Ric Flair. It was a fourth in-ring guy. But you look at it because you've got Frankie Kazarian, you've got Bobby Roode, you've got AJ Styles.
Frankie Kazarian is so underrated. He's one of the better guys in the
I agree.
Such an underrated competitor. I wish he get the respect he deserves.
And since we're getting closer and closer on time, you mentioned
Storm
TNA.
Was the other guy.
Right, James Storm. Since we're talking about TNA factions,
hold on. I got. Well, I don't know. They faltered. I wasn't big into them. I mean, the turn with Bubba Ray Dudley being the leader of the faction, that was a nice turn. But other than that, they did nothing for me.
They tried to recreate the NWO, and it didn't work. It was that. Because basically they took a bunch of guys that nobody cared about, and they put them in a faction and tried to make... It was literally like the children of people that were significant in the 80s. That was the problem with that team, with that group. I mean, and then, Chuck's favorite guy, what's his name? I can't even think of his name. The big guy, his tag team, the big bone guy.
Oh yeah, it was Luke Gallows was in it.
Luke Gallows. I mean, yeah.
Well, here's one. Here's one for you. Speaking of Luke Gallows, and this is going to segue out of factions and into news. I want to bring up the Bullet Club. They've had guys like Cody, Kenny Omega, AJ Styles, Tama Tonga, Guerrilla Warfare, Kenny Omega, the Young Bucks, Adam Cole, Balor,
Shinsuke.
You've had Anderson and Gallows, Shinsuke Nakamura, and now you have the newest member of the Bullet Club, Marty Scurll. I did not see that coming.
A lot of people don't know who Marty Scurll is, though, because you get. I don't know if Tim watches Ring of Honor. I know Mike does not watch Ring of Honor.
I know the name, but I don't know anything about who he is.
Marty Scurll is the villain. Marty Scurll is Ring of Honor's TV champ.
Okay.
Now, who would you compare him to in other organizations? Do you think you should compare his character to really anybody? He's kind of unique in a way.
I was going to say you can't compare him. He's him himself. He's unique. He's one of a kind.
Well, Mike, I shared this video earlier, or maybe yesterday. I don't know if you saw it or not, and I think Ray's seen it. They were not too long ago. Adam Cole was trying to fire the Young Bucks or something like that from Bullet Club.
Fire the Young Bucks.
And he's not in control of Bullet Club in any way. It's Kenny Omega. Everybody knows he's the man when it comes to Bullet Club. So everybody knew this would come back around eventually at some point. And it's going to work around probably with Adam Cole even and going to NXT or main roster or something like that. He's talking about signing back with the WWE. But anyway, there's always someone who gets replaced and someone that gets kicked out. Well, the last person that got beat down really bad and kicked out, I believe, was AJ Styles, wasn't it, in Japan?
Yep.
And
Yeah.
now Adam Cole, who was big in Ring of Honor for a while as a champion, was out there. I guess they had a segment on TV, and Marty Scurll was out there, and the Young Bucks was out there. I guess they were confronting Scurll, and he turns around and pops open the umbrella, and he's got Bullet Club on it. And
I saw
Omega
that,
Omega had just introduced him as the new member. And whenever that happened, the Bullet Club does what do they call it? The Super Click.
Nah, Super Kick Party.
Yeah.
Okay, Super Kick Party. I know that they were calling something the Super Click the other day. I don't know if that's they were referring to that double kick or what they were calling it. But anyway, laid the guy out, and then Scurll will be the new member of the Bullet Club. Now he's a good fit for it though. For anybody who watches the Bullet Club and kind of keeps up with what they do in Japan, I don't keep up fully with what they do, but I do watch their clips they have and their interviews and stuff from Japan when they talk. And I mean, Bullet Clubs are a huge thing over there. Huge thing over here still as far as that goes.
But it's funny because Kenny Omega, you don't ever see him in Ring of Honor.
No, hardly ever.
Go with him since the beginning.
I mean, he's more of a Japan thing. I mean, Mike, you were looking at the New Japan stuff online?
Hold on, wait a minute. I think Tim's trying to talk, but he's so low that.
Tim, are you in a bucket? Tim,
No,
come in,
I'm
Tim.
not. I'm in my garage. But anyway, no. There's a guy that I've never actually heard of. I've heard of pretty much all these guys except for this Bad Luck guy. He's been with them since the beginning, though. You know, Bad Luck Fale, Bad Luck Fail. I don't know who the hell he is.
Bullet Club's got so many people
no
spread
idea.
out. So many people spread out.
He's been
It's
with
really
them since
really funny.
Day one, and he's continued. He's still part of the group. Been with us since day one.
Well, I mean, what I mean is there's so many members of the Bullet Club I couldn't begin to name them all. Chase Owens that we got coming on here soon is a part of the Bullet Club. I mean,
Yeah,
and
we
he
have
may be
Chase
a
Owens
main
coming on
part.
Wednesday.
And he may be a main part of the faction in Japan every day, but when he goes to Japan on tours, he's part of the Bullet Club when he's there. He's part of the Bullet Club representing over here in the States. Currently, I believe the NWA Southern Heavyweight Champion, Smoky Mountain Wrestling.
Correct.
So I mean, he is definitely around and everything. And these guys are everywhere. It's like Bullet Club is worldwide. It's not just like the NWO who dominated a company. The Bullet Club is everywhere. And if you take the ones who are former Bullet Club members and you look at them in the WWE, a lot of them still claim club. Anderson and Gallows, for example, will claim it. AJ Styles, if he's with them on the same show, would claim it. Finn Balor so far is not, but he's calling himself the Balor Club, which leaves it open to try to eventually go to the club again.
Did you know Jeff Jarrett's part of their group? Oh, hey, my wife's calling, so I'll talk to you guys later.
Yep, the boss is on the other line.
Boss is
He's
on the other
gotta
line.
go.
You got to run. We understand. We'll catch you later.
Just for that, you just made the list. Now, speaking of the list, Chris Jericho has been confirmed for some upcoming WWE dates. He is confirmed for 2 Japan dates in June.
But very limited wrestling, though, right?
Right, but he's going to be doing in-ring competition as well as John Cena has been booked for the 4th of July SmackDown, which is going to be interesting to see because that usually brings in the lowest ratings of the year for SmackDown anytime it falls on the 4th of July because, it's 4th of July, everybody's out seeing fireworks. So I don't think them bringing John Cena in is going to help.
Yeah, who knows? They always think it helps, but hardly ever. Did either one of you guys see the Twitter war right now with Bubba Ray Dudley and Randy Orton?
No, I did not.
All right, so Bubba Ray puts out a picture, and it just simply has the word dive on it. And I guess it's him jumping off the top rope at some of the younger talent in the Ring of Honor. Randy Orton follows it up and says basically, it's not, I don't have it in front of me here to tell you the exact quote. He didn't call it a dive as much as it was a old talent falling off the top rope. is what he's trying to say, that Bubba Ray Dudley is not much use of anything, I guess. course,
Yeah, but that's funny because
is it Velvet
it's
Sky
funny
that's his girlfriend?
yeah, Velvet Sky's his girlfriend, but it's funny because Randy Orton started about 4 years after Bubba started.
Well, there's a thing about this though. I'll get to it in just a second. It gets brought out. Randy Orton has another Twitter out that says, "Sorry to the indie marks, indie guys, and old timers who do dives. Took offense. Just having a good time over a few drinks in Denmark, closing the SmackDown Live tour." While beating Raw and making over $5 million in the last 11 shows, now I know to some that doesn't equate to a standing room only crowd of 150 people paying $8 at the Armory somewhere. But in the big boy world, that's called putting butts in seats. So enjoy your flips, dives, and 20 super kicks per match. To each their own. I will go dive back into my 13th title run and get ready to flip when my bank statement comes this month. And it says headlock. He's taking major shots at these guys. And
He hit him with a
there's
headlock.
supposed to be bad blood. The reason why there's supposed to be bad blood between Orton and Batista against Dudley, because apparently Bubba Ray Dudley was stiff with both of them when they both come in early and hurt both of them at one point. And they've had bad blood since then. Crazy stuff.
Well, Orton Batista kind of circles back around into that whole faction thing because we didn't talk about Evolution.
How do we leave Evolution out of the mix? How do you leave Evolution? But that's like this. Well, I'm not going to say second coming of the Four Horsemen. I'm not going to give them that kind of credit. But Evolution was I guess you can almost say it because Ric Flair was in there.
Evolution was about Ric Flair passing that torch to Triple H, and those guys. The original formation of Evolution, not the shitty remake.
Watch your mouth. This is a PG show.
Oh no, we're
PG-13.
13. Remember, there are those 5 words we can say basically.
So go find that thumb that you like to put in that place, Ray. Because I'm speaking.
That we can't discuss.
Yeah, we can't discuss. Your digital rectal problems.
But, come on. What's this other version of Evolution you're talking about? Are you talking about Legacy?
No. They reformed Evolution without Ric Flair for a short
time. Instead of Batista, it was supposed to be Mark Jindrak instead of Batista.
Well,
right.
I'm really glad it was Batista because it worked out great. When the first time came around, they were untouchable. They looked great. Flair still was able to go some. He didn't look completely destroyed and old. It was wonderful. It was like the last hurrah for Ric Flair, and I loved it.
I thought that Evolution. Although I wasn't a fan of Evolution, I mean they are a great stable, no doubt, in WWE history. Probably, man, if you're going to go down in memory of things, the corporation does stand out because of all the bad things that they did. But I mean, DX and Evolution to me stand out as the two I remember the most. I don't go back on this whole corporation thing that they had because I don't know. I guess I wasn't behind it. I couldn't get with it. But when Degeneration X and Evolution are the two most stables that stand out in my mind in WWE as of recent, at least anyway. Ray.
We're waiting for you, Ray.
I was letting Mike to go first.
Oh, no, Mike's the one that brought it up. Mike brought it up.
Yeah, I already went. So it's pay attention.
It's all you, sir. All you.
Where were we? I'm sorry. I actually zoned out for a moment. I was thinking about, the other stuff that I was going to bring up in the show.
We are on. We circled back around to factions with one major one that we left out with Evolution. Speaking of the Evolution, we made a revolution back around to Evolution.
Look, Evolution was good. I think that, it helped create big stars in Batista and Randy Orton. And it was, basically Ric Flair's last hurrah. Triple H didn't need them to establish anything. So, I mean, for what it was worth, they were good when they were around. There wasn't many that could go up against it. There wasn't, it was just they were the second coming of the Four Horsemen, but they were pretty much WWE's version of the Four Horsemen, I feel. And like I said before, it wasn't supposed to be Batista. It was supposed to be Mark Jindrak. They actually had cut the initial entrance video with Mark Jindrak, but I guess it was either contract obligations or whatever the case was. They opted to put Batista in it.
Yeah, and they went on to do good things, as far as a faction would do, as far as getting gold and stuff. I mean, and of course, there's always that major problem.
You got to remember, Flair and Batista had the tag titles, Orton had the Intercontinental title, and Triple H had the World title, all at the same time.
And of the four people who were in there, all four of them at one point had been WWE champion. I don't know if they were all now, not while they were all in the group together. Flair obviously didn't get it back anytime he was in that group, but didn't while they were in the group, you had Orton and Triple H both at one point had the title, right? And Batista got it at a later time.
Right.
So I mean, you had
when Orton got it, that's when he got eliminated from the group.
Right,
exactly, because he wouldn't give it up. Triple H wanted to turn the title over to him. He didn't want to do that.
Right, and then Batista left when he won the Rumble and decided that he wanted to go after Hunter for the belt.
So I mean,
and Flair just kind of like fizzled out.
Yeah, more or less. I mean. And think about this too with Evolution. In the same sense as Nexus, in a way, Nexus turned out several stars eventually, right? Quite a few of them came that they got out of the Nexus thing, became stars. These guys in Evolution made themselves stars. Triple H was already a star. Flair, we know, but Batista and Orton became big in WWE.
Orton would have became big regardless. Because of who he was.
And that is true, he would have, but it's still, I mean, he was still a part of the group, and it didn't hurt his chances either, though, as far as that goes. Now, Batista might have been something different. Batista might not have made it quite as big if he didn't have that tutelage and guidance that he got from Triple H and Ric Flair. But we all know, well, Vince likes the big guys. He had the look, but the question is, how far does the look get you? What does the look get you for Roman Reigns right now? It gets you constant boos and everything. What if they went the wrong way with Batista and tried to push him too hard, too fast, like they did Roman Reigns, and he was the original guy that they booed that way and everything? You never know how it could have went in the long run. I think since they brought him around more slowly in that group when they brought him up, I think that helped a lot to get for the longevity of his career with him there, at least anyway. I want to bring something else up. It's current news, since we got when we can jump back and forth, guys. We still got a couple more people we can talk about, but I want to bring something else up I had read earlier today that interested me, because they got currently a group in NXT right now called Sanity, which Ray, you're very familiar with Eric Young and the group.
Before we talk about Sanity, I want to bring something up about NXT. I was right about Ember Moon. She is out of TakeOver, and it is now a triple threat between Ruby Riott, Nikki Cross, and Asuka. Also, we will be having the tag team title ladder match between DIY and the Authors of Pain at TakeOver. And we now have a new number one contender for the NXT Championship. And it is Hideo Itami. He beat Roderick Strong. And if you guys get a chance, check that match out, because, like I stated in the past, when you have fans on their feet chanting, "This is awesome," you know it's a hell of a match, and it's a match you don't want to miss.
Well, I haven't got to see it yet, but I was going to watch that match, the show from last week, and I did miss that, so I was going to get to it eventually. I tend to catch up on a couple of shows at a time with NXT. I know I shouldn't, but since we don't do an actual show on them, I don't get them. I don't watch it all the time like I should. But earlier, I read this thing earlier today about Sanity. There was an original version of Sanity that was supposed to be out that didn't take. And I don't know if you've seen this or if you knew this already or not, but the original group was brought up by Triple H to Marcus Lewis. I don't remember a Marcus Lewis. This might be before I started really getting into NXT.
I don't recall Marcus Lewis myself. If that was his in-ring name, then I've never heard of him.
Yeah, I don't know. But Sami Callihan was one. He was Solomon Crow or something like that.
Yeah, he was Solomon Crow.
All right, so him and Sawyer Fulton, those three. And
Sawyer Fulton, Solomon. Well, Sawyer Fulton was Insanity, and he got injured, and that's why they brought in Damo and as Killian Gray or Killian Black, whatever his name is.
All right, and this Marcus Lewis guy, I don't know him, but he says Triple H came to him in September of 2015 and said he got a great idea for you guys. We're going to bring you in as a trio, sort of punk-looking people like Mad Max. And he said it was supposed to be Crow, myself, and Fulton. But he was like long-term, and it was a long shot already and everything. Callahan left NXT, and there was a different talk at that point when he left. So that didn't quite work out for him. But I didn't know that about Sanity. I thought that was just some new thing come in with Eric Young, made for Eric Young and everything.
I mean, if you remember when Eric Young debuted in NXT, it was not under the belt of Sanity. He had a match against Samoa Joe, and he lost.
Right.
But he came in as Eric Young. You know, he didn't have that Sanity look. He came in with the green vest that he wore in TNA, and that was it. So, yeah.
Now, another one, as far as, you know, I want to bring up before we get too far into it, I did kind of touch on just a moment ago. The one I touched on was Legacy itself. Kind of a spin-off there, I guess you might say, of Evolution with Randy Orton taking over and everything. Legacy should have and could have been something better and bigger than what it was, if you think about it, because it was all about their legacy coming up. A second-generation Rhodes, the third-generation Orton, second-generation DiBiase. They could have made something really good with that and just not make anything great with it. I thought they could have been really good. You know, maybe even given the Evolution groups that they ran with a run for their money at that point. But
well, you also forgot they had Manu as well.
Yeah, but that didn't stay though. I mean,
Manu, really? Manu?
Yes.
Manure,
well,
maybe.
It seems to me that we have a caller from Chicago.
We can see here. Who we got here, Mike?
He said his name is Brett, and he's from Chicago, Chris.
All right,
like
Brett, you were on the air with us, man.
First time, long time.
How's it going tonight?
Oh, not bad, not bad. How about you?
Pretty good, thank you. We've been talking about stables tonight, and you know, the different ones we've watched over the years and what we thought of them. What's the stable that stands out to you that you've liked over the years?
D-Generation X.
D-Generation X, definitely a strong one. And were you all about the D-Generation X where they brought in X-Pac and the New Age Outlaws, or more about just the...
Yeah.
Well, you know what? I can actually ask Brett this
right
question.
Now. Living it. That's how I live my life.
And you know what? Let me ask you this, Brett. The DX that was Shawn Michaels and Triple H, Chyna and Rick
Chyna,
Rude.
what a babe.
Would you have considered that DX to be just more of a tag team because it was really the only in-ring competitors were Michaels and Triple H, or would you still consider them a faction?
No, that was a tag team.
So you would consider that to be a tag team?
Thank you. See, Ray, Brett, unlike you, is an intelligent human being.
That's the same thing Mike was saying earlier too when it was brought up. We can definitely agree with that, though. I mean, they were more of a tag team, yes. I mean, we did come to terms and agree with that earlier, Mike. You were correct. They are more of a tag team than a faction at that point in time because, like you said, the Midnight Express were not a faction, and they had a bodyguard and a manager, too. So we are good. But at D-Generation X, what is the thing, Brett, that just stands up the most to you about D-Generation X that you remember the most about them that they did?
Oh, my God.
There's so much, I know.
Yeah, we're trying to think here. I can't even. What about you guys?
You know, you don't kind of send it to me, guys. When they imitated the Nation of Domination on Raw.
Oh, okay, yeah.
Can you smell? Do you smell what the crock is cooking?
Yeah. Hey,
That's good shit.
Chris, whose motorcycles did they urinate on?
Yeah,
Was it the Undertaker's?
That would be
he doesn't remember.
No,
He doesn't remember.
that would be DOA.
He's got it.
Yeah,
there
it
you
had to be.
go.
It had to be DOA. That was the biker gang. So I mean, who else would have been at that point?
Wait a minute. I just thought of something. I think DX was actually. I think the New Age Outlaws, you could consider them to be part of DX when it was Michaels and Triple H, because if you remember, they helped out DX a lot, especially when it came to New Age with the Legion of Doom. It was the four of them that shaved off one half of Hawk's mohawk.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. Oh,
That's
shit.
a good point.
Oh, my God.
Good
yeah,
point,
I remember
yeah.
that. I was there for that.
I see. There's so much they did.
You were
Man. It's
there
hard to
for that?
remember
Wait,
it all.
Wait. Brett, did you just say you were there for that?
That's correct.
Wow. See, I would have. What was the arena like that night in person when that went down?
Everyone was going nuts. It was insanity. I can't even describe it. It was so unexpected, you know. And then everybody just got up out of their seats and they were flipping out, and beers everywhere, and little old lady grabbed me by the hips and started making out with me. And that's what happened.
Nice. Hey,
Speaking
that's
of
a memory that'll last forever.
Yep. What's next here? Who's that?
Well, do you have another faction that might stick out in your mind?
Hey,
Maybe
who's the best of all? Hey, who's the best of all time? Let's just get to it. Who you guys say?
The best faction of all time?
I'm an old school guy. I'm Four Horsemen all the way.
Oh.
That's me.
Cool.
That's me. I'm a horse. If we're gonna, I'm an old school guy, man. I'm 44 years old, man. If we're going with factions, man, I am a horseman, man, all the way. Mike, who you got?
You took the Horseman, so I'll take the next obvious choice in the Heenan family.
All right, Heenan family's tough.
Anybody with Andre the Giant stuff.
It's a tie between probably DX and the Bullet Club for me. Because you look at the domination of the Bullet Club and you look at the longevity of the Bullet Club.
Yeah.
True.
Well, I'm thinking Undertaker.
Oh, you're going best all-time wrestler now. Are you talking best all-time faction or best all-time wrestler now? There's a difference in this.
All-time wrestler. No, both.
Oh, both, man. I got so many favorite singles wrestlers. I couldn't really narrow one down to all-time. I mean, if you're talking about my all-time favorite, my all-time favorite is Ricky Steamboat. But I mean, all-time greatest is really, I mean, Ric Flair is like 16-time world heavyweight champion. Had the title in both major organizations.
Hey, how about Stone Cold?
Stone Cold's great.
Heartbreak Kid Shawn Michaels.
He's, Michaels is great too.
He's a showman. He's an all-time showstopper.
He's a great entertainer.
Mr. WrestleMania.
Well, what are we talking about here? That's what we were talking about. Yeah, the best entertainer, right?
Well, it depends on what you look at. I mean, the show was Best Factions basically this week.
Best Factions.
So that's why we're talking about the best factions. That's why we picked those out. As far as best all-time individual, I mean, that could be just a matter of opinion on everybody's part. Everybody's going to have their favorite when it comes down to it. Yeah. Matter of fact, if you want to go my all-time favorite, I grew up in Tennessee watching Jimmy Lawler. So.
Yeah. Well, I'm going to go with Hulk Hogan then, all-time.
Oh, Mike, that's on you now. Mike is your favorite, Hulk Hogan.
If I have to pick a wrestler that is wrestler. It has to be Luthez. I mean, without Luthez, we don't have modern professional wrestling.
But you didn't grow up
Yeah.
We
watching
don't have
Luthez, though.
we don't. No, but that's not the question. The question posed is greatest all-time wrestler.
No, well,
And-
I'll
and-
get that way.
In the modern era, which
I'm
I
gonna
mean,
go
I
Shawn
consider
Michaels. Stone Cold. Stone Cold and Shawn Michaels over here on this side. Stone Cold.
Yep. See, that's what I'm saying. I mean, everybody's got their own era they grew up in and who their favorite's supposed to be and everything. So, you know.
Some people just have better opinions than others, you know?
Exactly. That's why I said Ricky Steamboat's best, but y'all ain't listening to me. No one's listening to me.
No. I heard you. But
See, he heard me.
I'm thinking Shawn Michaels. Was he in the minor leagues? I've never heard of Ricky. Yeah, we never heard of him.
Never. All right, tell you what. I'm gonna tell you guys what. When we get done with
Ricky
the show
the
here,
Dragon
listen.
Steamboat.
Hold on a second,
wait.
Ray. Hold on. When we get done with the show, I want you guys to go to YouTube and look up Ricky Steamboat versus Ric Flair. Okay.
Or Ricky Steamboat versus Macho Man, WrestleMania 3.
WrestleMania 3. You can do
6.
that as well.
Oh yeah,
WrestleMania. No, it was WrestleMania 6.
3.
3.
Was it 3?
WrestleMania 3.
It's 3.
All right.
Okay.
All right.
Yeah.
All right. How about we put Stone Cold Steve Austin against that Jamoke right now and see what happens.
Right now, they'd both pass out probably from exhaustion.
Yeah, good point. Because Stone Cold
you
knocked
know
him
what?
out, and he took a beer and passed out on his own.
We could do the whole thing of take the guys both in their prime, debate all day long with everybody because
Right now.
yeah, everybody in their prime is always going to be great. I mean, it's like taking Hogan in his prime versus Flair in his prime.
All right, hey, we're gonna look, wait, whoa. We're gonna look up that video you said. Okay,
Which one?
the one you guys said.
Oh, you got
Steamboat.
Steamboat and Flair, and you got
Are you
Steamboat.
talking about
Steamboat. Steamboat versus Flair. The midget wrestling the other midget. Yeah. Steamboat versus Flair. We'll look it up and then we'll call you guys back.
All right.
Okay.
Yeah, you'll do
All
that.
right.
All right, it's a great match. Look it up. We'll watch the whole thing.
All right. Stone Cold.
Stone Cold is great, no doubt about that. And thanks for calling in, guys. We appreciate you participating tonight. Stone Cold was great, no doubt.
I think those
when you
gentlemen
think-
broke into some Steve Weisers.
Steve Weisers. Well, there might have been some Steve Weisers going around. There could have been.
Wait,
But
they
when
might
you
have
think
been-
Attitude
wait.
Era, though, you do think Stone Cold. So
They're out in Illinois. They're not far from Michigan, so they might have been hanging out with RVD.
RVD could be.
You could probably
Could
see
be.
that cloud from Jersey.
Yes.
Ray probably got knocked out by that cloud from Jersey in Jersey a couple of times.
Whew, boy.
But anyway, that being
So,
said, like I said,
there's
when you think
something-
Attitude Era, you think of Stone Cold and The Rock. Both stand out as far as that goes for being greatest. You can go either way with
by
that.
the way, so I want to bring something up because I know we're running real short on time.
Yeah.
So Braun Strowman is going to be out for the next 8 weeks. So they're
Mhm.
canceling the storyline for right now between him and Brock Lesnar. Now, the match that happened for the number one contendership for the Intercontinental title match where Bray Wyatt interfered and attacked Finn Balor, that is now getting scrapped as well because they're going to put Bray Wyatt against Roman Reigns, and they're going to do a program with Finn Balor and Brock Lesnar at Great Balls of Fire.
Man, that name. I wish they could have just. Why they had to use that, man? That's so corny. Great Balls of Fire pay-per-view. Jesus. Finn Balor and Brock
I smell a
Lesnar.
lawsuit.
How are we supposed to buy Finn Balor versus Brock Lesnar when you have a Goldberg and a John Cena and everybody else bigger than Balor being dominated? How are we supposed to buy those two?
Right. Look what he
Fighting
did to Dean Ambrose. Prime example.
I don't get how we're supposed to really, we're supposed to buy that whole scenario. It doesn't seem like it's going to be a very doable thing for Balor to overcome and win that. Same thing if they had brought in Seth Rollins instead. I'd read that somewhere. They may go Seth Rollins. You can't. He's no different. I mean, he's not going to do a lot better than the other two. If you get someone the size of Cena, the size of Reigns, the size of Goldberg, even though Goldberg is Oldberg these days, taking him on, and they're getting dominated at times, I don't know. Balor's just not. He's not built. He's fast, but he's not built. He's not going to hurt Lesnar that much. Thoughts?
That's what I said.
He's going to.
Oh, go ahead.
I think what will happen is he'll do the demon entrance, and Brock will faint, and Balor will win.
Oh gosh. I don't know what all
that's about as believable as anything else. I mean, you basically have Gumby going up against a damn dinosaur.
It doesn't seem right, but let's go ahead. We got a little under 3 minutes left here, so Ray, go ahead and tell us about what you got coming up. I know you got Chase Owens coming up.
Well, this week we got tomorrow night, obviously, our Monday Night Rewind show, our recap show. That'll be Chris and I, and if Mike can make it, Mike. But he's always hiding out somewhere in the shadows. Tuesday night we're gonna have our SmackDown recap show as well. Tuesday we'll have our SmackDown recap show, and then Wednesday I will have Bullet Club member, Ring of Honor wrestler, New Japan wrestler, and right now current NWA Southern Heavyweight Champion, Chris Owens.
Chase Owens. Jesus, I'm always doing this. Don't call him Chris Owens tomorrow. On Wednesday. Don't do that. I can see it now.
Chase Owens. Sorry.
Make yourself some notes. Chase, if you're listening, it's hard to get good help these days.
It's been a very long day. Trust me. It's been a very long weekend.
It's hard to get good help these days, is all I can say.
Listen, I'm still recovering from Metallica.
I know. Poor guy. I hate it for you. Front row to corner. I really hate your luck.
Don't worry. When I go to Monday Night Raw in July, I will complain just as much as Ray does about going to Metallica.
Listen,
okay, you do that.
I was front row with 5,000 people slamming up against the back of my chair as I'm getting squished against the railing, okay? And that's just in the pit. But anyway, next week I also have Rob Killjoy from the Ugly Ducklings next Wednesday.
Quack. And you may not know this, Ray. The Ugly Ducklings are the new NWA United States Tag Team Champions. They just won them off of our previous guest, the Heat Seekers, Saturday. In Smoky Mountain Wrestling.
Yeah, that's a. I wish I could have seen that match because I know it was guaranteed to be a good one.
If you check online between now and then, you might catch it uploaded. It's quite a possibility. You may see it up in the uploaded match, but they did win the belts from them Saturday, so they are now the reigning U.S. Heavyweight United States Tag Team Champions. So, well, that being said, guys, we got a little less than 30 seconds here. We're going to go ahead and cut this on out. At Body Slam the Comp on Twitter, Body Slam the Competition at Facebook and Instagram, and if you go to bodyslamthecompetition.com, it's our YouTube page, where if you will, hit that subscribe button and subscribe to our videos, and on blogtalkradio.com/bodyslamthecompetition, under the profile picture, you can go ahead and hit the follow button and catch us on there and get emails when our shows are coming out, and when we have some uploaded there as well.
And
thanks to everybody.
Thank our callers, Tim and Brett, and everybody that listened in tonight. And also, don't forget, check out our Patreon page as well.
We are, that is pretty much finished at this point. We are adding material and content to it as of right now to get that finished and everything. But we'll have more up there very shortly, very soon on that. So do visit the Patreon page as well. I guess, Ray, I will catch you tomorrow on the recap show. Mike, if you are there, we'll talk to you then. If not, Mike, we'll see you Sunday on the next show here. Next week, what do you want to do, guys? You want to do Greatest Managers next week?
Yeah, we could do Greatest Managers.
Mike, you good with that?
Why not?
All right, next week, everybody, we'll be talking about Greatest Managers of all time. If you want to call in and give us your idea on that, then call us in at 347-989-8082, and we'll discuss your idea of the Greatest Managers as well. Until then, guys, we'll see you.
And real quick, and Brett, we look forward to you calling in next Sunday to let us know your opinion of Ricky Steamboat.
Oh yes, and it better be good. All right. I'll
On
see
that
you guys
note,
next Sunday.
ladies and gentlemen, we'll see you tomorrow.